Welcome one and welcome all to another beautiful day of the LCS Challengers League. I'm Mazel, joined by Magical and Joshi, reunited once again, my dear friends. And we are here to round out week number 2. Magical,
I have a question.
You have your hand up. We'll go ahead and go with
So you said welcome one, welcome all. Who's the one?
Me.
you. Or Joshi.
It's gotta be specifically one person. So it's gotta be just Josh then.
I guess it's just Josh. You're the one.
All right. And we got
Well, Josh, as the
MMJ.
one, what do you like to say?
Well, I was just going to say we had a really good opportunity here because we have MMJ. So normally it's mixed martial arts, but today we're mixed martial jarts.
What does that mean? I'm so confused.
We'll figure that out as we go along.
All right, I guess we're gonna figure it out. But it is another wonderful day here. I'm very excited to get to have another day of an ACL action as well, and be able to see kind of what we got going on for the week, especially to see how the standings are going to be looking on later on. But first, I have a dear friend that I know down on the range, and he's got a little video for us. So let's go ahead and see what he's got.
Welcome to another year of On the Range. Now, we've been busy this offseason acquiring some new territory. We got some new, some old, some rough and rowdy. Let's go and check them out, shall we? Now, one of the new bloods we got is Masu. He's in a bit of a migratory pattern while he flies to LA, but that ain't gonna stop him. No way.
The wild turtle getting lower and lower. Is it enough? No!
Oh, not enough!
And that was on 120 ping. Now, another youngin' we have on the range is APA. And in instances like these, it's important to plan ahead. Luckily for Appa, he always does. Yep.
Concept following up,
that's
APA
big.
buying the space. Concept taking a lot of damage right now. Throws out the all-in. First to fall.
Now that we've gotten some of our youngins nice and wrestled, let's go see how our more mature members are doing. Caution now, we're going to be walking into the top lane kingdom.
Now next up we got good old Bradley. He's the last remaining member of his prize pack. But don't let his early antics fool you now, or he'll serve you up some of that humble pie.
Young, even with Prismal on top of him, I think Bradley's got it. That's another one. He's got Prismal too. Pentakill to Bradley.
Now as we come around the bend here, make sure you got your flex protection on, or Hanser will get you.
Whoa, watch out now! Whoa, Nelly! Is that a real weapon? Arms are flying everywhere!
Now this next part of the range is a little bit scarier. We're gonna go check in on our crocodilian friend from down under, Surdy. He likes to hang out with the creepy crawlies of the world, but you know, if he gets you in his sights, boy, he'll get you. Woo! It looks like I got my work cut out for me wrestling all these new critters this year. But as always, thanks for tuning in to an episode of On the Range, and we'll see you next time.
Man, I hope he's got all those critters under wraps.
That was
there,
the
but,
jarts.
Was that the jarts? I like your reenactment of the crucial pieces of the count, Magical. Thank you for the space setting, at least. But we do have to check in on some of the spice, maybe some of the knife that we've seen throughout the weekend on Twitter. And we're starting off with Array. Got our first 2-0 and more to come. I expect great things here, Magical.
Well, I mean, they got their game today too, so maybe they can get another 2-0 and this week 4-0. That'd be nice for them to bounce back, because they did definitely struggle in the first week.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of tough opponents thus far, but, I mean, we get to see a lot more from the Golden Guardians, like we said, because they've already played so many of the teams that we're expecting to do well over the course of the season. Their schedule should get relatively easier for at least the next couple of weeks, and because you don't have to play the same teams twice in the format, it means that Array and the rest of the Golden Guardians will hopefully do better as we continue going to
Look at those smiles. Oh, that's what gets me.
Okay, can I just say everyone's pulling their weight and holding Young up except for Rosethorn?
Well, okay, you know what? But all you need is the communication between Rosethorn.
That's fair.
Low Pally here says, bummer to lose game 1, but seeing progress slowly and surely makes me hopeful, and I'm happy my guys are getting better. It's not how you start, but how you finish, and that is the winner's mentality that we love to see in this competitive league.
And isn't Challengers League all about learning and growing as a player anyways? The goal, ultimately, is to get to the LCS, and you're not going to get there by doing the same thing and never growing, right? You're going to get better slowly but surely. It's like you learn from the mistakes, not necessarily just from every single victory.
Yeah, and it's really not about getting the wins as much as we like to pump up the teams that are winning, because, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? I think Malice was the one who said it before. getting wins is nice, but improving will also get you those wins naturally.
Yep, exactly that. And love to see that improvement. Also, Soul coming out 3-1 week so far, not so bad. Facing off against Brandini tomorrow. It's going to be a fast 5-1 week. A little bit of spice there in the end, huh, Magical?
I love Soul. Soul's such a good kid. He gets the trash talk in there as well. But he always just is out there to try to improve but have fun. And the fact that EG's still playing with 2 subs, like, props to Robbie Bob and Mobility. I'm not going to take anything away from them because they have definitely been putting their heart and soul and stepping in last minute to play with EG. That's difficult for the whole squad to have to play with 2 players that you didn't really get that much scrim time beforehand compared to all these other teams.
We know that Soul hasn't been very excited about the way that he's been playing so far early on in the season. He's been grinding his way in order to try and get back into form.
And another top laner. Oh, man, our top laners love the tweets this year. I love it. Surdy here for TL First. I'm on my way to start some violence. And we all know that's the moniker of Surdy here, Joshi.
I don't know if we have the second follow-up tweet to this, because I'm pretty sure he just tweeted like one word, damn, after the series was over.
It was yesterday.
Typical Surdy fashion. Another player that I love is Surdy, because he'll at least try to get the trash talk beforehand. He's got the hands, too, which is always crazy to see when he gets to pop off, because he lives up to that. I'm on my way to start violence. If you watch him in lane phase, what does he always look for? Doesn't matter if he's got the advantage or not. He will look for violence.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. I'd love to see the check-in on the community, though. The players getting on Twitter. I always love to see the kind of interactions in that space. But it is time for Samsung SSD Fast 5. These are our stats, our top stats, at least across the board here, from top to bottom. And want to go ahead and bring up the graphic here for the Samsung SSD Fast 5 and get your guys' opinions on what kind of stands out for you here. We have those fastest level 6s pretty high up on the board, but Joshi, I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen any breakaway numbers, really. First kill going over to Arrow is rarely something that is because of the bottom lane, especially when it's that fast. It's usually because there's going to be a little bit of intervention coming in from the jungle. But overall, decent numbers so far. We expect that these numbers will continue to improve over the course of the season, and hopefully we'll get to see some really wild things later on.
So, Josh, I do want to correct you because I believe that kill from Arrow was just a straight 2v2. I think that one was actually a straight 2v2. He was playing Lucian, and it was just a really greedy play from Zeri. I forget who played against them, and they just punished it right away.
Yeah.
So So that's what I'm pretty sure that one actually was. But you're right. Rarely is that the case. Usually it's jungle intervention. And for me, the ones that stand out is I got to look at Robbie Bob. The fact that this is a substitute player coming in, and someone who's played in the collegiate scene a lot before, somewhat in the amateur scene, but still putting up like an impressive number here, actually being the #1 the fastest mythic item. I gotta say, I'm impressed. Same with Blulu right afterwards. This is his first week here in NA. He got in Thursday. He's barely got any scrim, yet he's on the Fast 5 as well.
I also love to see the consistency. It feels like there's not a giant gap, right? Like there's not a lot of craziness that happened, it feels like, in the first little bit, like you were kind of mentioning towards Joshi. But it is interesting to kind of pick apart and, as you say, see the representation for some of the newer standouts right now. But love to see Destiny up on the board there, Joshi, at least a little bit, as coming in and top of the fastest item transformations. You got to throw some love to the supports, right?
Yeah, I suppose we can talk about them at some point, but for now, it's definitely going to be an opportunity for us to just kind of hone in on what players we are really excited about, and with that, I think I want to start talking about our first series, Lennon. Can we do that?
No, we got to talk about our standings first.
Yeah, come on. Don't skip ahead here, Josh.
Yeah, come on. You got to run a show, man. No, just joking.
I'm a color caster. I barely look at that.
Have the standings here. I do want to break it down a little bit more, though. Obviously, Wildcard having dropped those games earlier in the weekend, but we do see a striding fourth Dignitas, Fear, and TL Challengers, Joshi.
Hey. I want to interrupt and just say props to Fear. Props to Fear. I want to give a clap. Okay. Just really quick. I'm going to let Josh talk now.
Yeah. Oh, no, Fear have been playing.
You finish in a minute, Josh, but I'm
going to cut you off. Fear have had the greatest start of a provisional team of all time. And honestly, they've been playing pretty well, right? They've had a couple of decent challenges to go up against, but they're going to have to start playing against a lot more of the strong teams. Their schedule hasn't been super strong just quite yet, so we'll see if they can continue to stay up here, and if they do, that's going to be the sign of an incredibly strong provisional team going into the rest of the season. For now, they're hanging with some of the top dogs, but we're still early in the season. We'll see how much growth they have left to do.
I mean, you're taking away, I think, some of the credit Fear deserve, because they did take a game off of Team Liquid Challengers. It's not like they've faced just super weak opponents to get to the top of the standings. Like, props to them, but like you said, they still have a lot of other teams to face, like Cloud9 Challengers, and like we look to the future even today, facing off against IMT Challengers, a team that I think is one of those hit or miss teams that can either pop off and look like the best team in Challengers League, or towards the bottom of the standings where they currently find themselves.
Yeah, I think looking at the plethora of action we have ahead of us, it's going to be a lot of fun as you see the schedule looking forward. But we're going to go ahead and bring up our first matchup of the day. Joshi, now is the time as we're going to look at Golden Guardians Challengers versus AOE Gold. We're going to take a look at Golden Guardians first. Yep, look at the beautiful art before it came up. But we have Concept to the top side, Rosethorn in the jungle, Young in the mid lane after his LCS debuts this week, and Array Prismal rounding out the bot lane, Joshi.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back a lot to what we were talking about with Array when we looked at his tweets. First 2-0, looking for their second. This is definitely a team where they have not been starting out quite how they wanted. They're currently 4-4 on the season, and so they're going to really have to try and reintegrate Young back into the team, and I think that should be a big opportunity for them to kind of improve, just because they now get to have dedicated time with him instead of having to split scrims with the LCS roster.
Very true. You got any thoughts on the roster here for Golden Guardians right now, Magical?
I mean, I still think they have a lot to show, right? Like, Concept he struggled the first week, but he has been looking better this week. Array and Prismal also look like they're getting together really well. They're starting to roam together. They're really powerful in the bot lane, which normally is not something we would normally talk about them. They're more about the team fight and positioning that way. But I've been really impressed with how they've quickly been adapting to this season.
Yep, and the adaptation needs to continue. We're going to look at the adaptation of AOE Gold as Gamsu at the top lane, winning in jungle, Darkwings in the mid lane, Lynx and Skytech in the bottom side, Magical, and they've had some very come-up performances, it feels like, to start the season on.
Hey, Lynx is a player that I think was highly underrated going into the season. If you look at a lot of the plays, especially a lot of the flashy plays, Lynx has been the pioneer of that for AoE. Sure, Gamsu gets a lot of credit because of the backdoor win that he's gotten for the teams nearly twice, which is absolutely incredible to see. But Lynx is someone, especially when you look at his team fight prowess, how he positions. This is always like a high mark for me when I look at marksmen, is where they're at and how cognizant are they of their surroundings.
Yeah, we're going to actually pull up some Lynx and Skytech clips here. And Joshi, I'd love for you to kind of expand on what he was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things about both of these AD carriers is they are some of the players that we're kind of looking at to be potential stars for this roster as the season does continue to go on. Array's been around the Challengers League and Academy scene for quite a while, and Lynx has not had the same amount of experience as we've been seeing from Array, but another player that we have been really excited to watch because both of them are very good at taking what we've been calling 80% fights, right? If it's a very strong situation, the team fight is looking to go well, they are very good at maximizing their damage. The big thing that we're going to be looking from both of them over the course of the season is can they do even more in 50% fights or 30% fights? Will they be able to take situations that don't look as strong and be able to turn them around? Both of them have shown promise in winning fights. Now we need to convert that into making them true carries for their rosters.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that continuation of, veterancy, but as well as cohesion for Array and Prismal will shine through against Lynx and Skytech, but especially kind of as a big focus in terms of like what bot lane has been in the meta, but as well as for these players' trajectories, right? It's a pretty big time to show up for at least Lynx and Skytech and to kind of solidify for Array and Prismal to round out week number 2. But it looks like we are ready to go with draft. So we're gonna
before you leave, there we go.
What do you got? Path to LCS. There you go. Go follow at Path to LCS. Make sure you use the hashtag NACL if you want to get your tweets on screen. And we'll see you after game number 1, guys.
Yeah, we'll see afterwards. It'll be a good game one here between Golden Guardian Challengers and AOE. A lot to prove for both squads. AOE, unfortunately, even in a well-fought battle yesterday in their game 2, fell 0-2. So they got a lot they want to prove against Golden Guardian Challengers to say that they deserve to be that team, the professional team that everyone looks at. While Golden Guardian Challengers are the team that also needs to say, hey, we are a good team. We're solid. We have most of the core from last time still around. Rosethorn is a jungler that we have a lot of confidence in. Young has been popping off. Plus Array and Prismal having a full split to play together. And we've already seen that they have these glimpses of heroism. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to push back on that a little bit, because what we've been seeing a lot from Golden Guardians is the fact that they have a lot of players, and nobody on this team is a liability. But what we're looking for them to improve upon is, we already talked about how Array, we want them to be a bit stronger and stepping forward in fights and potentially turning those situations around. But one of the big things that we prided Rosethorn on in his previous seasons, especially when he was playing with CLG, was his willingness to make plays right off the bat early on in the game, especially in conjunction with Dokla. That's kind of been missing from this Golden Guardians roster, and so the Rosie that we've been demanding to come back, have an opportunity to play in Challengers, we're still waiting for that full re-emergence to come out of the cocoon.
I'm a bit surprised, though, looking at the band so far. We have some expected bans, the Akali against Young, Castanet against Darkwings, which is also kind of a Young ban as well. But I was expecting a lot more marksman focus for both sides. Sure, Nami kind of eliminates what we'd expect with Lucian, and the Ashe is something that Skytech has also been playing pretty well, but not seeing Zeri touched at all. The Yuumi still being available as well. Varus, Caitlyn, the list goes on.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the Nami ban, it kind of begs for either Zeri or Yuumi getting taken off the table, because it has been so strong for so many different players over the course of the regular season. We will see what Golden Guardians want to try and do with it. We saw some interesting adaptations last week where Bradley brought out, or maybe I think that was earlier this week, it was on Saturday, he brought out the Nasus as one of the classic counters to the Zeri. And so, instead of giving it over, it looks like they're just going to pick it up for themselves right away and demand that AoE Gold find a counter to it without the use of the Lucian Nami.
Very surprised to see that Array is the one who wants to get that, because Concept is also a legacy Nasus player. I almost would have expected them to give that over to Link, say, all right, yeah, fine, play it. We'll play something else. But they take that for themselves. Caitlyn, possibly Lux, going to be the answer for Lynx and Skytech.
Yeah, and this is one of the things, one of my good friends is talking about how the fact that Zeri has become much more playable in lane with the recent changes than she was in 2022. But one of the big weaknesses that she still has is the fact that you can poke them out. Caitlyn has been one of these big answers.
Oh,
so
Maokai.
It creates a very different... Yeah, it creates a very different style of gameplay, where instead of trying to burst out the Zeri plus Yuumi, the Zeri plus Lulu that we've oftentimes been seeing, you're trying to slowly chip away at their health bar. And Lynx and Skytech, it is a bit more of a difficult style of play, because you have to make small decisions over and over and over that are correct. But this is something where we were just saying, we have been very excited the way that Lynx takes already winning situations.
Yeah, and then I kind of skipped over that Maokai. Didn't get touched at all in the bans.
It's boring.
It's boring, but it's something we got to talk about. It didn't get banned, so of course it gets left open. They made the trade. They did the handshake of Zeri for Maokai. Rosethorn is going to grab Sejuani, so have a little bit more tankiness, frontline capabilities for the team.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Alex. I think that the meta right now is incredibly boring. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
You don't say.
There's not a whole lot of interesting things. This Caitlyn is the most surprising pick that we've actually seen come out. And so while we wait for these two teams to kind of surprise us with some picks that they're actually going to be playing, I kind of want to zero in a little bit on something that we were looking at with AOE as well, because they have played 2 games so far this season in only 8 that have already gone over 50 minutes. These guys have been playing crazy long games. They've been playing back and forth, and there's something about them where they, what Winnie was saying, they're winning games that they're not supposed to, and they're losing games that they're supposed to be winning. And so just as we've been looking at with a team like Immortals Challengers, which we'll see later in the day, this is a spot where AOE kind of need to shore up some of their weaknesses. They've been doing a decent job. Winnie has been super decisive in a lot of these engagements, but it's one of those things where we need to see them actually go for more consistent laning phases and make sure that they can get Lynx and Skytech ahead in the first place.
So I know it's typical support pick at the moment, Heimerdinger, but it doesn't mean I'm never not excited to see it. I like seeing Heimerdinger. Okay, it's interesting seeing it paired up with a Caitlyn. It's also a really good pick into Zeri, so I like that. Plus, with Yuumi not being taken in the first rotation, I'm expecting probably even Yuumi and Lulu banned by AoE.
Yeah, a little bit surprised by the Cassante, as you've already called out, just because both these supports have been so good with this area historically. But what we're seeing with AOE Gold and the composition that they have, because these 3 champions have happened to come together, they have incredible zone denial during a lot of these team fights. You throw down turrets, you throw down saplings in order to create a ton of space where it's so difficult for the other team to walk into the different objectives. And then you also have a trap line from Caitlyn to just put down whenever you're actually there first. And so AOE Gold are so strong at creating a situation where Golden Guardians are going to struggle to come into them. But their challenge is going to be if they aren't there first, Golden Guardians can just poke them out, and they have a lot of non-committal engage already with Rosethorn's ultimate.
Interesting to see Azir be the final ban for AoE, not Lulu like I expected, but also Ryze still left open. Darkwings loves to play that Cassiopeia. With top lane already shown, I would expect them to grab this top lane pick for Gamsu, hold on to the final pick for Darkwings, and try to see if they can force Young to play that Ryze so Darkwings can have one of the champions that he has made a lot of highlights on.
True. I mean, Darkwings, the big highlight that we saw was the 1v4 base defense on Cassiopeia during his time on Dignitas Academy last year. And so, as they are trying to figure out what they're going to be going forward, is Gamsu going with the Olaf. We've seen a lot of success. Faisal yesterday, I believe, getting 3 solo kills in lane, all by himself early on in the game, becoming an absolute terror. And now Gamsu's actually going to be picking up. He's kind of showing a little bit more of the carry style that we weren't used to, Alex.
No, this is something he has been playing slowly. He played a game of Garen, if I recall, which was really surprising to see him play. Not having quite the success Boost Hater has on it, but he's willing to try more carries. Fiora as well. And so you get something that can kind of stat check against Cassante even early on. You have this tool now to make sure Cassante is not going to be an issue, that you don't have to worry about him being a frontline tank that also can assassinate the backline. You're just going to chunk him out and split push for days.
Yeah, and it's definitely not the Gamsu of old that we are used to. Definitely much more of a team fighter historically. But what we're looking at from Golden Guardians right now, they are going to need to survive some of the early onslaught. Well, a lot of people remember Syndra as a lane bully, and she still is not bad in lane. She's definitely a character that requires a lot more time to scale up into the game, right? You need to earn some Syndra dollars. You got to work your 9 to 5 as in your 0 to 15
I tell you, I've been
minutes.
stealing that and the Victor Bucks from you.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of Victor Bucks.
Speaking of Victor Bucks coming through, I'm a little bit surprised that this is actually coming out because this is a matchup that has historically been Syndra favorite. But again, with the rework, it is definitely more playable for Victor because you walk up and you just trade Qs over and over again, and then you just use that to build up a health advantage because you're getting a shield every time, whereas Syndra is not. And so this is a way for AoE to create some early advantages. And because of that, Alex, we have to look at this game holistically. AoE have built up a composition where they should be expected to be winning every single lane. This is a situation where if they ever fall behind, AoE can't proactively force plays on the map by getting 2 objectives first and forcing Golden Guardians to come into them. AoE's composition is going to be incredibly difficult to pilot because they don't have a ton of strong engage tools. They have Heimerdinger's Grenade, which is decent but kind of inconsistent, and you have Winnie's ultimate or a flank coming in from him. And that is good, but typically very obvious. It's going to be something that Golden Guardians can react to, whereas Golden Guardians, they're like, we're going, Rosie, use your Ice Bolt.
That's a huge fight on their side. Okay, before we get into the game, hopefully I can get this before. On a scale of 1 to 10 for both teams, how exciting are they?
Like 3.
For both of them?
Neither team is particularly exciting. This is going to be a very finesse-based. It's not exciting. It's been played every game for the past 50 games.
It's Heimerdinger.
All right, you can be a 7 or 8 for you. I'm going to stick with my 3.
Oh, no, I'm not saying a 7. I'm saying like a 5.
Oh, 5. Yeah, we'll see exactly how it comes through.
It just gets a couple points because of Heimerdinger. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. We'll give them a 4. We'll average it out. So this is definitely going to be a very finesse-based game. And again, we're going to have to pay extra attention to the laning phase for this game, Alex, because if AoE Gold fall behind, it is very difficult for them to come back.
And I'm really looking at the spot lane as well, because we highlighted that before. We want to look at Ray and Prismal, a duo that played a little bit together last split, but now getting more attention and more practice with one another, going up against Lynx and Skytech. 2 players that have also played together for quite some time. In fact, Beatdown even mentioned it yesterday on the broadcast with him, with those 2 and Winnie. They all played back on University of, what was it? University of
Western
Waterloo?
Ontario?
Or Western Ontario. I think that's what it was.
Canadians.
I couldn't remember which team it was, but that's the one that they played on together. So they've got a lot of practice themselves and going up against pretty much a duo that is also getting practice. I'm really curious to see if we can see that growth from Lynx and Skytech that we've seen so far. Even if they're 2-6, they have been working well with one another, especially in lane phase and to team fights.
Yeah, wasn't it Lynx and Skytech? They were beating up on another bottom lane that we were saying should be much better than them. It was Unforgiven and Destiny.
Unforgiven and Destiny, yes.
Yeah,
we saw a clip earlier.
Yeah, the Zeri Yumi 2v2 against the Lucian Nami, where they traded 1-for-1 in an aggressive fashion.
With first blood, too.
Yeah. Lynx and Skytech have definitely been a bottom lane that has been a lot better than a lot of the other provisional bottom lanes thus far. And going up against Array and Prismal isn't the toughest challenge that they will face. And if they can do that too for Unforgiven and Destiny, we should also be looking for them to build up an advantage up against Array and Prismal. Because it's not just the fact that they have a ton of experience playing together. It's not just the fact that they have a lot more range to play with against Golden Guardians. But it's also, we have to remember that Prismal has been role swapped from the AD carry to support role for less than a year at this point. They're still learning a lot of the matchups, and while they are very good at playing a lot of these engaged supports, some of these enchanters haven't necessarily been the most exciting thing for Prismal.
Alright, so just to give everyone a little update of what's going on, there has been a bit of a pause. We're just waiting that through at the moment so we can get into our first game of our first series. It is week 2, day 3, and expectations for both teams. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Right,
Sure.
We talked about Golden Guardians. It's a challenger team. So going up against a provisional team, you're expecting them to be the favorites, right? That's the team that you have to look at as, okay, we expect them to win. However, AOE have a lot of veteran talent. Oh, well, we don't have to worry about talking about that too long. Oh, yeah, let's talk about it. Okay, because AOE have Gomsu, who's played in the LCS, LEC, back when it was the EU LCS. He's played in finals, 3 splits in a row, 4 proving grounds. You have Darkwings, who's played in Academy before. Winnie, he's been around for a while. Lynx and Skytech in the collegiate scene as well. Skytech's having its own time, so it's not like this is just your typical professional team.
Yeah, I mean, we even said it before in previous series, as AOE was a team that was built not to be relegated, right? And so far, I mean, due to the overperformance of Cincinnati Fear from, I think, a lot of initial expectations, they are a team that does have to kind of worry about that a little bit. They got to start picking up wins, because wins for provisional teams matter a lot more than they do for the challenger teams. And so, as we see, the chat is kind of getting back into a 50-50 situation between these two teams. I kind of favor AOE a little bit, but I don't know if it would be more than about like a 65-45.
All right. 65-45?
55-45.
I was about to say, that's
as soon as I said that, I was like, that's not quite right.
they could put 110% in. I want extra effort from both teams anyways.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. 70-30. Well, we will keep track of that. Now, one of the things that we have been seeing from Darkwings is, while they are very good at characters like the Cassiopeia that do a lot of damage later on, this Victor is a character that you should be expecting to be pretty aggressive in most matchups due to the use of that shield. And right now, Darkwings has not been able to build up a lot of leads in situations where they potentially could have, whereas AOE's bottom lane, look at this, they're already creating a lot of zone pressure in Array, down to about half HP.
I really like this play. This is what you need to do, especially Caitlyn and Sari. With the Heimerdinger behind them, how are they supposed to even get within that space that they're going to create? Sure, you have Karma to try to clear out some of those turrets, but Skytech is playing that very smart, using the brushes in order to gain control so they can always play around the lack of vision that Golden Guardians are going to have, and it's going to be the level 2 experience lead for AOE.
Yeah, coming out relatively quickly, as we should be expecting in this bottom lane, and Skytech also doing a good job dodging the Mandra Q. Oh, Rosethorn already ganking.
Yeah, looking for Darkwings, who was putting down some vision. Doesn't want to flash just yet. Actually, Darkwing's holding on to that the entire time. Respect, holding on to the summoner spell so he doesn't have to worry about getting ganked later on.
And unfortunately for Darkwings, this is a very rough situation all of a sudden. A lot of mana, a lot of HP burn, and the Corrupting Potion is completely out of stacks at this point. Darkwings is not going to be able to trade as aggressively as they might have wanted, and what we were saying was supposed to be a winning lane is now falling into a bad spot, and Gomsu's also
being aggressive. Yeah, look at this. Rosethorn from mid to top, and Gomsu is dead. That's going to be Skytech's first blood in this gank, unless Gomsu, okay. Gomsu almost going to rumble back, but Rosethorn's like, yeah, I got to take the kill. Sorry, bud.
Okay, I mean, we were saying that this should be a situation where AOE should be playing for advantages in their lanes, but Darkwings going to really struggle at this point. He's going to be able to get most of this CS, so we'll recover a lot of that and not lose all the Victor bucks. But the only lane that they have that is winning now for AOE is this bottom lane. It puts a lot of pressure on Lynx and Skytech all of a sudden because, well, they have a very strong laning phase. We start getting to the 1 item mark. That's when Array and Prism will start becoming a lot more exciting. That's when Sindri starts to come online. And if you don't have a front line, if you don't have the damage support from the Victor, you're not necessarily going to be able to chew through all the HP that Rosethorn's going to build up.
No, and this is definitely devastating. With a huge team fight comp on the other side for Golden Guardians Challengers, AOE have to wrestle back that lead that they should have had in every single one of their lanes, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're just mentioning now. You mentioned it before. I think we'll continue to hammer that through, because if they don't, I'm just looking at... I'm not going to say they are any slouches with the team fights, right? They still have very capable team fights in zone control, but it's hard to set up that zone control, as you had mentioned previously as well, if you're behind.
Yeah, and one of the good things for AOE is, one, they have been absolutely wild at bringing back games that they have no business still being a part of.
I love it.
It's one of those situations where there's a quote about contracts. I want to attribute it to Kelsey Moser, but I'll have to double check on that, where they said, if we have a situation that is bad and our composition is not working, there is no player I would rather have than contracts. And Winnie is kind of a similar player in the regard that Winnie is going to make things happen as a heal just gets used.
Ooh, flash from Skytech as well. You'll take that trade. A heal for flash. Great plays from the Array Prismal bot lane.
Yeah, and oh, do they still have the jungler coming around the side? Lynx does need to be very careful.
Yeah, there's right there. They're going to spot out Rosethorn. Winnie realizes as well. But Lynx, Skytech, they were already quick on the read. They had the Shrine. They had the ward. They could spot out Rosethorn. You're still here in the bot lane looking for an attempted play. But now that Winnie has been spotted, they're just saying, all right, we're going to look for a little bit of poke, wrestle a bit of control away from Lynx and Skytech, who have been lording all the supremacy of bot lane.
Yeah, this is super tough. Winnie now coming around, potentially looking for Prismal.
Okay, getting a little bit of damage. I'm surprised that Winnie actually didn't look for that flash in onto Prismal with the stun coming in from Skytech. But maybe also it's hard when you have that flash still available for Prismal to want to concretely look for that play, because you could get pulled right under turret.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a counter call from the bottom lane, if anything to me, right? Lynx and Skytech are building up a decent lead in the bottom side of the map, already about 2 waves ahead, and they don't want to jeopardize that. They don't want to take a fight where they might give over a kill. They might allow Array and Prismal into a position of strength once again. However, well, I do understand that, right? That's one of the things that we were looking at with Lynx, very good at taking a lot of these 80% plays. This is a situation where you need to start looking for those 50%, right? You need to start looking for opportunities to turn around this game, because this lane is going to be... Okay, now that it has gotten underneath the turret, the lane is in a much better position for them. It was going to be a problem if that melee minion didn't walk all the way up.
Yeah, because it should be a slow push back towards their turret at this point, right?
Yeah, it will slowly come back to them, and they can potentially build a freeze, which would be devastating for Array and Prismal.
Yeah, it looks like that's exactly what they're setting up. They already have Heimerdinger and Maokai onto Dragon. So the first neutral objective, easily secured by AoE, with Rosethorn spotted out on the top side by a ward that he just cleared out. Gives them ample opportunity. There's no counter play that Golden Guardians Challengers can look for.
No, Prismal might try in for something, but not going to be able to do it. No vision. I mean, I would have freaked out if it worked, but was very unlikely to actually come through. And so, AoE, I mean, they're fighting back a little bit. But just as we were talking about, one of the things that we were looking from the Winnie interview is they are winning games that they are not supposed to, and they are losing games where they are supposed to. And so, it almost feels as though a lot of teams kind of get relaxed when they're playing against AoE, when they actually have a lead, and now Skytech and Lynx potentially looking to get some damage onto Prismal.
Dark Wings, he's looking in a lot of trouble right now. There's no escape, even with the gravity well. Wait, you get that? Oh, Rosethorn's only level 5. I thought he was 6.
Oh, not quite. Just now
he
hit
hits
that
it.
level 6. But that's the flash down that just invites a repeat gank.
It does. And Rosethorn also realizing he got the flash, he's got Prio in mid. Young can rotate around where he needs to be with Rift Herald spawning in just a couple of seconds. Gives him more control over Winnie, who's still only at level 5.
True. And we also have to remember, we were saying that we weren't seeing the aggressive Rose Thorn that was having so much success when they were playing with
Yeah,
CHP.
he proved us wrong right away, didn't he?
Yeah, this has been a much better game from Rose Thorn than we've been seeing. We were so excited about Rose Thorn's Rek'Sai and Elise in previous seasons, but now just doing it on the Sejuani, making sure that Winnie can't get in, and the jungle that we've been praising for being decisive on the Maokai is struggling to make any of these plays.
Well, you just gotta give credit to Rose Thorn, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like the mid to top lane gank getting first blood as well. In fact, those worked out. Now looking back to mid lane, no flash. They can blow up Darkwings even on the other side. Where is the Unleashed? Oh, there's no Unleashed power available. Young had already used it previously, so they can't get the kill.
And look at that, Winnie comes right back in, trying to fight Rose Thorn on the back half, and Heimerdinger's walking up.
Yeah, they're looking for it. Waiting for that twisted advance with the grenade on the other side. They can bounce it over. That's what they're going to look for, but he was able to flash over the wall.
It's the flash at least, but I mean, that's one of the big differences, right? Remember the first game where you called out Young used the Unleashed power, the burst damage was used there, and so much it was healed immediately back up with the fact that Victor just has that corrupting potion, got so much of the HP back to come through, and now they're the ones with the Victor bucks that are actually going to be spent. But we can take another look at it. It really is just Winnie taking a look at this fight and saying, well, we have ultimates. Darkwings didn't immediately die, and so there's no chance that we kill Rose Thorn because all the damage was committed onto the Syndra. But maybe if I can hold this Syndra in the Chaos Storm for another round, another tick or two, we should be able to pick up the kill. And there they go, finding a counter kill during a Rose Thorn's gank.
It's like you said, the gravity well with the Chaos Storm placed purely on Young, so that they just ignored Rose Thorn. They're like, okay, whatever. You're a non-issue. You use everything to try to lock me down so Young can pick up the kill, but without Unleashed power, the outplay button Syndra desperately needs, what does it matter?
Doesn't matter. So this is definitely one of those spots where we have to look at the mid lanes. Both Young and Darkwings, relatively young players in similar positions in their career. Darkwings has had a little bit of time to play. Young has had a little bit of time to play now. Young had the opportunity to play with the LCS team, and he looked okay. He definitely was outperforming, I think, a lot of people's expectations where they were expecting him to be a big liability. But now going up against Darkwings, they're doing a decent job in terms of actually mechanically playing these fights, maybe throwing out cooldowns a little bit too early and leaving opportunities like that on the table.
Well, I would argue now, AOE, 2 of their lanes in control. Top lane, still kind of it's iffy, but it does seem that Galamsu has slowly been regaining that control. Which brings us back to the earlier points you made, Josh, which are AoE's biggest strength is how they can do it in every lane. If every lane can stay ahead, they have a good chance of winning because they can get control of every inch of the map. Would you say that even though it's been delayed, that they have successfully done so?
Yeah. You know, it's a tentative yeah. Skytech takes a lot of damage because now it becomes a lot more about the decisiveness that we've continuously praised this team for. Their willingness to move together, and even as this Heimerdinger and the Maokai create some space, you know, they just throw down a couple of spells and nobody can really challenge them. That's going to be the new test of how they try and build up a lead. They have an even state, which is not quite as much as they were wanting from the laning phase, and now they need to be able to turn it and continue to show play instead of just riding on their laurels.
Surprised Rose Thorn didn't look for Glacial Prison, but then again, they didn't know where Winnie is. They're popping the Eye of the Rift Herald in mid lane, looking for some of those plates. As Young and Rose Thorn are going to be forced away. The Crash still will be successful, getting 2 plates for Rose Thorn.
Yeah, and only Rose Thorn. None of it going to be going over to Young as Skytech caught.
Skytech caught, but he does have Flash. He doesn't even use it, so Ray just gets a free kill.
That's tough, right? There's not a whole lot of play to go on there. Skytech just gets rooted up immediately, and with that kill going over, the dragon control that AoE were building for is suddenly gone.
It's completely gone with 4 members on this half of the map as well. Sure, you have a TP advantage for Gamsu that he can possibly join in, but that would be such a waste because then that gives more control in this top lane back to Concept that Gamsu had wrestled away.
Yeah. Old Maokai would have gone all the way back to base.
That would have been, those are the days. Like Akali, Shuriken flipping across the map. Love those. Love those. But honestly, I think that's a little bit of unforced error from Golden Guardians because they try to reset with Dragon being up. AOE, they've got everyone back, so they can get control. They already were pretty fairly in control of these lanes towards the bottom half of the map, which means they have to look for this play in mid lane. They should be able to kill Dark. No! How did he live again?
I mean, Syndra's not an early game champion. He has the shield, he just flashes out, and so Golden Guardians, they know there's multiple people on Dragon. They don't want to chase him down the river, and so look at this. Golden Guardians send multiple people towards the top side. Potentially, they go for a dive on Gamsu, but this guy's full HP.
He's full. Oh, though, he's face checking. Ragnarok pop. That's going to be the ghost. You try to see if he can get a lot of damage onto these members. Look for Young. He's trading it back. 1v3 Gamsu.
Hey guys, that guy's crowd control immune. None of the buttons you'd use actually did a whole lot. Now we're seeing a fight on the bottom side. Just kidding, they're going to be backing away.
They're just chipping him away to make sure they're not there.
Oh no, Winnie?
Oh no. He throws a sapling. Is it in time? It doesn't stop one, but it looks to get concept. Even getting the root, the bounce back, and 2 kills for Gamsu after a very long extended play.
Ooh, I love the patience there in the queue from Winnie as well, making sure that he waits for the root so he can actually get the knock back towards his teammate. And suddenly, AOE, they're very much in this position where they can fight for this game. 2 dragons already. All of their lanes are now in position of being even so they can actually play it out. But I don't know what this was, honestly. They start fighting him, but they also... Young walks right up into melee range, and it means that the splash damage from the Tiamat is hitting both of them. Gotta play with range a little bit more, but it's really hard when nobody can actually peel for you. There's no crowd control that Golden Guardians can create to make space for Gamsu.
No, you have to stay very far away from him.
Yeah.
It's Olaf things, right? The stat checker of top lane. And with how Gamsu's been playing this season, this is right in his wheelhouse as we get back to live. And Darkwings looks like he's got no flash. This time, he will die with the Glacial Prison connecting onto Winnie, but he's fairly tanky. Should be able to get out of dodge on this one unless Array is able to get enough damage underneath the turret. Flash, there it is.
Oh, dodged out on the W as well. Golden Guardians, I mean, they're firing right on back. They are making sure the game doesn't get completely out of hand. So the big question is going to come around the next 2 dragons, right? How are Golden Guardians going to be fighting back? Rosethorn has been very decisive about getting a lot of these fights going, but I think one of the differences that we've been seeing is Rosethorn's been willing to back away rather early on in a lot of these fights, whereas Winnie will just continue to go forward and secure the kill. And you gotta get the bag when you're actually looking to try and fight back from these positions. You gotta pick your moments a little bit better, even though they've been very good at just going for them in the first place.
Now, even though it has been a lot of skirmishing and it looks like a lot of control for AOE, Golden Guardians getting the second Rift Herald of the game for themselves. The trade of neutral objectives for the top half of the map and the bottom half has at least netted them some potential to play around these turrets, especially if they can crack open a lane like mid lane to help out that, or maybe even look to put that wherever Array and Prismal are so they can get them more gold to keep up with Lynx.
Yeah. And so far, I mean, Lynx and Skytech, they take the bottom lane turret, they go towards the top side, they're getting ready to pick this up as well. Rosar's sticking around, as is Prismal.
Okay, headshot.
Bang.
Takes a lot there.
Did you know if you say bang before you fire, your skill shots still do more damage? I learned that one from Coco.
I hate to tell you, but
no,
that's not... No.
The higher rank you are, the more damage you do as well.
No, you have to say pew!
Oh, I'll accept that one.
Yeah.
So, right now, I mean, Prismal's far away, and I'm a little bit surprised that Lynx and Skytech aren't committing for this. They have Winnie in the wings, and now they're starting to push it up, and there should be a turret going down. AOE find themselves another turret, and that is 4 objectives to only the 2 Rift Heralds.
Prismal, back canceled. Will survive, though. Didn't want to use the ace in the hole. Well, it's not up for Lynx, so you can't really use that to make sure they can secure a kill.
Yeah.
But still gets control. Yeah, no pew. No pew.
No comment.
Is this going to be like another Twitter war kind of thing where it's like bang versus pew?
Well, we'll see. But for now, we'll have to pay a bit more attention to the map because we got another dragon spawning in only 40 seconds. And 40 seconds is what I've always told all of my teammates. Hey, if you have not backed before 40 seconds before the dragon, you don't get to back. You don't get to spend any of your gold. So that's why Array heading back has
What if you have TP?
TP is an exception.
Okay.
Or if you have some kind of global, you can do it. But in general, most characters, you gotta back by 40 seconds or you will be late for the dragon. And AoE being on time for the dragon is late for the dragon. The fact that Skytech and Winnie are already here to create this line of scrimmage and force Golden Guardians to walk through them means that AoE are in prime position to pick this up.
Everyone grouped up. We'll have a 5v5 fight 18 minutes into the game. That's going to be the Rift Herald spawn, with the dragon also living and roaring onto the map. Everyone trying to whittle one another down, looking for the poke. The turret will fall. AOE, they're tempted. They're tempted to look for this fight, but they have the zone control, and they'd much rather play around that.
Yeah, AOE, they lose the mid lane turret to a Rift Herald, but that's a Rift Herald committed. It's one of those spots where Golden Guardians were not able to use this base created in order to take control of the river back, and so it will give AOE this dragon. And this is the most calm and collected I think we've seen any AOE game thus far. Remember, they've had multiple 50-minute games just looking for these big fights later on, and Darkwings checks the wrong bush.
Wait, first of all, he definitely did not want to actually try to fight that one. He got very lucky, like you said, that the laser pointer went into the wrong brush.
But it does force Darkwings away from the turret, so Young will get a big chunk here, be able to proxy away at basically no cost.
Yeah, it will at no cost, but if you look mid lane, there's some pings coming in from AoE as they look to topple another structure. They don't need the Rift Herald. You have Caitlyn. She is a monster at taking these taking these turrets and these objectives for the team. While Array, he's sitting there and he's like, what can I do? I don't have the range to contend against both Caitlyn and Heimerdinger.
Yeah, there's nothing that Array could really do. You just got to make sure you wave clear as much as possible, and as this map opens up, AoE's job becomes that little bit easier. And so, Alex,
yes, Josh,
we always look at it, and Cloud Soul is normally just an okay soul. And
Soul's a soul!
But not all souls are equal to another. We learned this from Pirates of the Caribbean.
A soul.
But I was just about to say, it's one of the best souls in this game for AoE.
I don't care what soul it is. Soul's a soul. You take your soul.
All right, we'll have another conversation about that. You have to watch Pirates 3.
Content, dragon to dragon, soul is a soul.
Very, very big brain coming out there. But AoE, it's so good. You just get the extra movement speed on Maokai, and it gives you that much extra opportunity to actually go for some of these engages. Olaf loves Cloud Soul just because the extra movement speed that you get, and Darkwings is able to reposition in fights that much better when you throw down the Chaos Storm. So suddenly, AoE, they've kind of lucked into a situation where some of the problems that they had with their composition are being assuaged by the fact that they rolled high on the Dragons.
Rolled high, but I would also say that they have battled back where it looked kind of devastating for a bit. Top lane dying to first blood, mid lane losing flash and getting ganked over and over again. But they were able to get control, having a couple good ganks that counteracted Rosethorn, as well as Gomsu being Olaf stat checking a Kasante. This has put them in that position where they could possibly fight unless Darkwings just gets eliminated right here underneath his tower. He's surviving still. He gets the flash, but he turns it around. 1v3 with the TP's completed. Everyone from Golden Guardians Challengers in this top lane routed, running for the hills. The flash from Rosethorn to the blast cone, but that Gale Force, the red buff burn, ticking down the life of Rosethorn.
And you know that's going to be a Baron, Alex. That's 3 members already dead, including the jungle. Here they come. They have Heimerdinger. They have a Caitlyn. Now they can just do this. Maybe Golden Guardians get a couple of turrets back in the mid and the bottom lane, but that is a huge prize for AoE, and it gives them so much control over the upcoming Dragon Soul.
Off of a proactive attempt from Golden Guardians Challengers as well. Darkwings, how many times has he been ganked? How many times have they tried to kill him? And it's only been twice that he's actually died. And usually he's taking someone with him, he's surviving well, and here in the bot lane, fighting against Concept under turret and getting kicked again, yet he still survives. He keeps doing it. The TP comes through. That's the lightning crash. Darkwings finally falls, but look how much damage he did to Array and Concept. Winnie flashing in, getting the cleanse, and knocking back Array, who has a shield. He's trying to survive. The turret falls. Winnie doing a lot of damage, but he's not tanky enough to survive at all, so they have to sacrifice him, and it will finally be 2 members of AoE into the dust.
What a wild fight. Darkwings teleporting down with no ultimate, doesn't know where Array is, gets immediately dove, and Winnie thinks that is probably a 1v2.
Right as I praised him.
Yeah. And suddenly, the good thing for them is that excuse me, is that both of them will be able to come down and they will still be alive for the upcoming dragon. So while it was a bit of a disastrous gold play, they are still in control. They still have this big win condition to play for. AoE have done a pretty good job so far. Darkwings in particular has not died too many times despite the pressure that has been put onto him. But now, this upcoming fight, they won't have flash. That's something that Golden Guardians can potentially prey on, and they still have great engage tools.
as Golden Guardians are TPing, getting control, making sure there is no setup from AOE around this dragon. And while we have just a little bit of a moment, let's do a check-in on how these bot lanes have been going, because we highlighted them before, Josh, but we haven't really... They're there, exactly, and that's my thing, is they're kind of just there. When do we see either side really be the impactful force for the team?
Probably not this game unless one of them pops off in this upcoming fight. AOE
even with 2 items for each of them?
No, that's not enough. This is definitely a spot where we have to pay attention much more to how Gamsu and Winnie play in the front line. And Rosethorn, good.
There's Winnie in the front line, getting bursted down. He's taken out by Array, and he said not to look at him, but he's providing that damage at the moment. That's going to be ace in the whole body block by Young. Getting the undertow as well. 4v5 fight. Scatter the weak connect onto Darkwings. Looking for the Notofo, strikes back and getting a lot of damage onto Darkwings. All out. Makes him squishy. And there's Gamsu. You got to be careful of the stat checker. He used Ragnarok though. So now he's susceptible. They can easily try to see if they can get on top of him. He throws out another axe, but it doesn't connect. 50% onto the dragon. It is going to be the soul if AOE can secure this, but they have no smite available. It is Rosethorn who has to make sure that he gets everyone out of the pit. He goes in and he secures it, but that's Gamsu on top of him, taking out the boar. So it will be the trade of his life and denying soul for AOE.
And they are going to have to be running away. Link's coming in for a potential flank. Young does not have the ultimate. They're trying to prevent them from basing.
That's going to be Scatter the Weak, only hitting on Skytech. Undertow connecting. That's a huge shield from Seraph, with Link's taking a lot of damage just from this singular Q out of Young.
Darkwings at this entire time, while he's been low, has moved up into the mid lane, gotten a lot of damage on the mid lane turret, and they finally pick that one up. Golden Guardians, they get the dragon, but it's a huge gold loss, and Prismal finding Darkwings again, not going to be able to do anything of it.
No one nearby, just delaying the backs. There's nothing really to play for, though. So it won't matter that you've stopped Darkwings from backing. You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds until Baron, even more until the next dragon. So let's take a look at this replay around the potential soul that AOE lost.
Remember how we said AOE is going to really struggle to retake objectives? This is exactly why. It's because the engage comes through, they don't get to take a fight on their terms, and Darkwing's a little bit too far pushing out the wave. And even though this ends up going well for them, this is one of those spots where the TPs towards the bottom lane, the commitment from Winnie and Darkwings comes back to hurt them. Darkwings ends up taking so much damage, and while they do survive, it's no longer a fight that they can definitively win, push people off the
Lynx, this isn't good. Look at Rosethorn and Young. They flash on top of them. They make sure there's no escape. 2 minutes, though, until the next objective, so it is a nice pick. But now we gotta ask ourselves, what does Golden Guardians actually gain from it?
They gain control of the top side of the map, which is going to be the biggest thing. If, again, just as we've been seeing AOE doing a good job with 3 of the 4 dragons that have come onto the map in the bottom side, now they also need to be thinking about the top side of the map. Can they take control of this? Can they force Golden Guardians off? Because if Golden Guardians are there first, and if they're there in mass, they absolutely can start up some of these big fights, and they are taking control of this top side. They're getting vision so that they can allow Young to another turret without any kind of reprisal.
For both teams, we could talk about let's talk a little bit about their stories, right? Because we already know Golden Guardians, 3 of their 4 members returning from last year. Well, you have 3 of 5. And then AOE also has 3 members that have played together in the past. Winnie is someone that we usually look at. You call them the contracts of, semi-pro and collegiate.
I call them that briefly, in like one aspect.
Briefly. Yeah, but I want to talk about that a little bit more on why that needs to happen, where he really needs to pull off those miracle plays here as they're losing the control that they had beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a position that has won them a lot of games, is teams not respecting their willingness to just full send different situations. And I think one of the other things that people have kind of been underestimating is the level up that we've seen from Gamsu from 2022 into 2023. Gamsu was this huge player that was always this tank player, always just creating space, not really playing a lot of carries, but they played the Fiora earlier this weekend. They also now have this Olaf that they're playing, and they're being much more aggressive. Well, there's still opportunities for them to dive deeper, and they still are figuring out some of the limits of the champion. Gamsu's willingness to trade the old identity in order to continue growing is absolutely helping this AOE team find their footing in a lot more games than I think they would have expected initially.
I'm glad you actually brought that up with Gamsu, because if you recall last year during Proving Grounds, how he actually talked about how everyone looks at him as a tank player, but we're going to have to put it on pause because when he nearly caught out, now he's getting fairly tanky. Now he's able to survive a lot of that initial burst, but going back to the point, Gomsu is a player who said beforehand he wants to break that mold. He doesn't want to just be viewed as purely a tank player. He wants to be seen as someone who's very flexible in what he can provide for the team, and I think with 3 members from the collegiate scene that have played together beforehand, he really is allowed to express himself because he knows that most of his team already has that built-up synergy, and all he has to do is fit into that mold.
And Alex, now we can start talking a little bit about a couple things. One, the Dragon spawning in 30 seconds. The Baron's already on the table. AOE are there second. Golden Guardians are already hitting, and they have the ability to turn off so easily.
Yeah, Gomsu has TP. Good to use that, but I think that GG just want to force out that TP from Gomsu. Deny that. 25% onto the Baron. They can commit, look to see if they can secure it. Here's going to be the Nature's Grass. It's secured by Array, but now they got to fight themselves out of the pit with Concept being the first casualty, or is he? Huge shield to keep him alive. Prismal over the wall. Same with Rosethorn. All 5 members are still alive out of Golden Guardians, even with Gomsu in the middle of everybody taking a Ragnarok to just get out of there. Array, he could be a hero. Diving back in. That's a TP. That's a lot of low health bars on AOE. They look to get over the wall, but Rosethorn, he gets killed by Lynx, while Concept on the other side is getting kited back. All out used. He takes down the tree and cuts them down. 3 kills in total for Golden Guardians Challengers, but they have to be careful. Ace the hole, almost all the health of Array, while Darkwings is still in the pit, and he takes Prismal with them, or does he? He's dodging, dip, dive, and dodging away from Young.
What the heck was that? That was all over the place. People almost dying, people coming back into the fight, and now only 4 members left alive for this upcoming Dragon. Array already heading towards it, knowing it's such a big boon for AOE, but Lynx is there, ready to go, and there is no help. There's nothing that Array has to really output the DPS up against the Lynx because they have no ultimate.
Yeah, but when he's up and he is booking it to make sure they can contest this, pulled out of the pit, then AOE realize a 2v2 fight to secure Dragon Soul. Winnie, he's on his way, but he's far out. Rosethorn is going to be the first jungler here, over the wall, looking to defend this Dragon from going to the hands of AOE as he's on top of it. Glacial Prison used. The smite secures it, but now they've got to fight themselves out again, losing Young as a sacrifice.
This is the AOE games we've been coming to know and love. Absolutely wild. Back and forth. So many different skill checks coming through it. AOE this time, they started hitting the Dragon. They leashed it for Rosethorn to come out and smite it. This game's starting to go into the later stages, and the Syndra coming online. But look at this. Looking for an opportunity to continue pushing the bottom lane, and Skytech creating a barrier.
AOE getting control back like they had beforehand. Making sure this turret should fall. Getting him extra gold. Gomsu on the other side. That's going to be the ult from Maokai. Roots up Concept, but he uses the buffer to dash away with the gravity wall, getting a lot of damage reciprocated back onto him, forcing the pop of the shield just to stay alive. But AOE, they might have lost the soul there. They still have plenty of opportunities, having gotten themselves more gold and the ability to reset.
As they back away, one of the big things that should be coming through, it has already come through. Darkwings now has the Rabadons completed, Lynx and Array both on 3 items. So you asked, when can we start talking about them? Now is when so much of the power starts shifting away. Gomsu has not been able to get in these last couple of fights. Kind of bursted out early on, and so Lynx and Array with these massive ranges. We said they're both so good at these 80% fights. Array thought he had an opportunity to turn a 50% situation, but just barely wasn't able to pick up the kills.
But he did survive and held onto the Baron buff, so at least one member
Rosie
could keep it. Rosethorn, that's a blast cone. He's also Sejuani. It'll be fine. Radiant Virtue, Warmog, so even if there's a lot of poke dished out onto him, all he has to do is reset, get back to the team as he's doing, but he didn't even lose any health in the first place.
They should just be able to back away. But yeah, both Lynx and Array, as we said, so good at taking these 80% fights. This is a situation where it's going to be very difficult for either team to set up something that is so clearly winning for them. And so it becomes a lot more about the space that is being created. And I love the fact that Skytech just throwing the turret over the wall is like, there might be somebody here. We've seen a couple of people in the area. How can we actually defend this Baron push?
I do like
they don't have to, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. The Baron's done. It was only on Array anyways. Everyone else had fallen at some point, losing the buff. So it means that there is going to be a lull. More clearing and gaining control. 2 minutes until the next Baron, and 2.5 for a third attempt for AOE to gain that Cloud Soul that has been denied for them for the last 10 minutes. But they look for the pick on a Winnie. Should be fine. Reset back with the team, and again, back to wave clear.
Very short cooldowns expended only by Golden Gardens. This just 1 up will be up in about 30 more seconds. That will not be a big issue for them to play with.
Hey,
AOE,
Josh?
What up?
What's that statistic you had about the length of games AOE have had?
They've had 2 games over 50 minutes.
Do you think we're going to have a third?
I don't think so. They're going to take a 3-4.
Right now, Concept has used all out with a huge shield, but now he's squishy. They can chase this down. It's not enough. Rosethorn, they lose him. I mean, there's a minute left and long death timers at this point. He is biding his time, but really, I think you want to die as quickly as possible because they're going to chase you down, which means they can peel back, gain control of Baron, and you've got a long... Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You burn as much time as possible. There's a minute left until Baron, and at this point, level 14, those are long death timers, and they are doing just that, punishing Rosethorn for not just dying immediately.
50 seconds does mean that they will be alive for the upcoming Dragon, but they will not be there in time for the Baron. If this is something AOE wants to start, they can do it while Rosethorn's still dead.
Resetting, 40 seconds, as you called out. They're already on their way to make sure they can gain that control around the pit. Golden Guardian Challengers realize without Smite, it's going to be a lot more difficult. Instead, setting up provisional vision around, make sure they can see when AOE enters the pit, and then if they can whittle down the health bars before looking for a fight.
Yeah, all the vision that we just saw Golden Guardian set up is going to get cleared out here in just a moment. Double sweepers does mean that there will be no way for Golden Guardians to see what's actually going on in this upcoming fight. And as soon as it spawns, it looks like AOE are going to be starting it, and Golden Guardians not looking to contest. They're sending people towards the mid lane.
They're trying to actually... It looks like they're trying to set up around the Dragon instead. They've set people mid, but the thing is, look how... How do you even get to say it? I was going to mention, they have fast clear of Baron at this point with Victor, Caitlyn, and Heimerdinger, plus Gomsu as well. They can melt that, and before it even spawns, they're already on their way, pathing into the bot lane to contest and try to get that soul they've so coveted.
Now, I mean, we've seen a couple of times where Winnie's been taken down to half HP. It's not enough. Oh, they're going to try and pick him anyway.
They're looking for him. He goes gold this time with a stopwatch. Young waiting, but he uses that twisted advance to get away from danger. So with all 5 members here and a Baron buff on the other side, it's the whole not body blocked in time by Rosethorn. So Young, pretty low, trying to see who else they can chip. Forcing them away again. Zone control, the Caitlyn traps, Heimerdinger, the sapling. It's so difficult for Golden Guardians to gain any position once AOE are the first ones on the call. That's why they have to force the issue. They're waiting until they can find their time.
Here comes Concept.
25%. That's going to be a smite. It's secure. The soul is on the side of AOE. Concept, though, he can't fight this one. They've already disengaged the fight, and he's so far away from the rest of his team.
And that's Baron and the Cloud Soul. And look at this. Golden Guardians are out of position. AOE looking to at least crack the base.
They should be able to get that inhibitor turret mid lane pretty easily with a Caitlyn on your team. Level 17 on the marksman. Gomsu is chasing away Rosethorn. And like I said, there it goes. Shows up. 1, 2. Just needs one more headshot on to the inhibitor. And that's going to be another objective falling for Golden Guardians Challengers, who now try desperately to make a play happen, because if they don't get this to work, the game is over. Gomsu is in the back line, but he is getting kited around, taking so much damage, but a huge shield saves his life as Darkwings took down the enemy top laner. That's going to be the cleanse used by Array, and only the headshot is going to secure it with 3 members surviving. Young, Rosethorn, Prismal, you've got to be absolute heroes, but you can't do it because AOE have the damage, they have the control, and they get game 1.
And as soon as the Cloud Soul goes over, AOE take total control. This was such a crazy game back and forth from both sides. It wasn't the 50 minutes like we've been coming to know and love from AOE, but still, the way that they were able to move around all these objectives, finally picking it up. I mean, it was kind of crazy how back and forth so much of this game actually was until AOE finally got what they were looking for.
I mean, they might not have had everything work out perfectly, but I think this... Yes, I'm going to bring up the analogy again, that Winnie kind of is the semi-pro contracts, because in situations where it looks like it's all doom and gloom, still finds ways to get the team back into a proper position so they can find those engaged fights, so they can gain control. And it worked out very well there, because with those little leads, all they had to do was be the first ones to show up to objective, and what could Golden Guardians do to even enter that arena?
Nothing. That was the whole thing. That was what AOE were set up to do, and they did it well.
Yeah, and so with game 1, AOE take down and deny Golden Guardian Challengers another 2-0 out of the gates, but Golden Guardian Challengers could tie it up at 1 apiece. We're going to toss it to a break. When we come back, we'll have Mazel here for our halftime show, so make sure you stay tuned.